Christopher Bill, one of our beloved artists, and you probably know him from social media. And if you don't, go to YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or anything else I'm missing here for your videos.
All of it.
All of it.
Classical trombone on all of them.
And search Chris out and get to know him a little better. But today we're going to talk about those really cool videos that we're seeing pop up all over the place that Chris pretty much is well known for, where you have a really cool piece of music, whether it be movie music or pop music, and it's all played by the same person in a variety of different boxes, and it sounds effortless in some cases, and it sounds like something went terribly wrong in other cases. And so I thought it would be interesting to interview Chris on this because he does it really, really well, and the end goal is to do things really, really well with your instrument. So, but you weren't always great with looping and layering, and so how did you get a start in all this to begin with?
So it started in college. I was the first passion was probably arranging popular music for chamber music. So I was writing like Beatles tunes for trombone quartet. Even before that, when I was in middle school, I was writing like classic rock tunes for brass ensemble.
Wow.
I mean, that was obviously they were not good arrangements, and we were middle schoolers, so it wasn't great playing. Like, and none of it was great, but that was, if I was doing that back then, you can imagine that trajectory. And so in college, I was writing these arrangements for trombone quartet and playing them with a group in college. And they were friends of mine, and they weren't as passionate about that. Obviously, they're in school for classical music. That's what they were really passionate about. And just kind of playing this stuff for fun, where I was I wanted it to be better. I wanted it to be just better, played in tune and accurately and focused and actually kind of like be that higher quality. Probably my inspiration for that was the Canadian Brass Beatles album.
Oh yeah.
And like that, it's this really impressive music that's hard to play, and yet anybody who knows the song is gonna enjoy it. So that was kind of the idea, and so instead of asking my friends to like, no, you need to go practice this music, that's not what they're there for. I went and I decided to record all the parts myself, and that was the first version of this, was me playing a couple classic rock tunes that I arranged and listening to all the parts and trying to put them together. And so those were my first YouTube videos.
And at that time, what tools were you using to do that layering? Because right now we have a bajillion ways to go about doing this, but I'm guessing, how many years ago was that?
That was 7-8 years ago.
Yeah, much different scene back then.
Yeah, so that was a microphone that I got as a gift, a Shure SM58 microphone, which is like, if you go into any bar and they have like a stage, they'll have a Shure SM58 microphone. It's like, they're known as the most durable, like you can throw it at the ground and it's fine. And it's a pretty quality microphone. I still use it when I travel and play on stage. Because you throw it in your bag and it's fine. And it sounds great. And so I had that microphone, which was a gift for Christmas. And the interface I had was an M audio interface, but basically an interface is, it gets that microphone cable into your computer. And so that was also a gift that I'm sure my family got on eBay or something, and that was it. And so I had that, and I had free software called Audacity, and that was it. And so from just that and my arranging skills at the time, which again weren't amazing, I was still kind of progressing with all of this. And then the other tool that I had that I don't think I give enough credit to is my roommate and my friends in college, my very first year, were all production majors. And so anytime I had a question about anything on the recording side or the editing side, they were there. And, they're not professionals. They were studying it in school, but they were in classes for all this. And so I could ask them questions. And so that's I probably learned a lot from them, just being around them and being able to ask questions while I was doing these recording projects.
Yeah. That's what's so great about college. You know, now years later, you don't have that community necessarily around you. And if you do, a lot of that community could be your competition, so not as ready to, to give you the tricks and the but so do you feel like, now there's so many different apps that you can use to layer whatever you're doing to record. Do you feel like what you were doing back then, like it was easier to get a polished product with less back then and to do it with a bit more steps, or do you feel like it's easier now with all the apps that are available?
I think it's easier to get something,
Mhm.
you know, but
Now.
but it might be harder to um, get something that you can tweak
Mhm.
and get really, really tuned into something that is closer to what your initial vision is. That's just in my experience. But also, I know people are, you use the tools that you have and learn how to use them. And so, I think if I were using an app at the time when I started, I probably would have found apps that allow me to tweak it in that way, and or just found workarounds in the tools that I was already using to make that end product. But where I started, I was using, like I said, this free software, and then I upgraded to the next stuff, and now I'm using industry standard stuff pretty much across the board. If you go into a recording studio, like I use the same software and equipment, and so now I've upgraded to that point where the apps, I think, I guess I don't know. It's possible that you could get to a point where you have that professional quality with an app. There's recording equipment that plugs into a phone. There's the phone quality video is better than the first cameras I was using. So, in many ways, you can actually get a more professional quality a lot easier with the phone. I just think that next step, at this point, you still have to transition to a computer to get to that next step. I don't know if that'll stay though.
And you still have to know the basics in the beginning, and that's probably true for anything you're learning. There's always a quicker way to learn things, but you can't get away from learning, microphone interface, order of recording,
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't
That's
know.
the thing.
You guys tell us after watching this video, for those of you who had to start with doing your first looped or layered video, let us know how that was for you and what you were using and what you learned from it.
Yeah.
But for those of you who want to get into it, let's talk about some tips. I think for me, the first place I would start, or the first mistake I would personally make if I was doing it, was potentially hearing a really inspiring piece of music and wanting to tackle it, which might be too difficult. So for those people who have no experience in larynx, where would you start? What type of music? And
well, what's kind of interesting is I didn't do looping at the beginning. I was doing multi-tracks, which is they're very similar. Which is I'm playing all the parts, but it's like a 4-part arrangement that any 4 players can play. But I don't have 4 players, and so I do all the parts and I record them. The looping came later when I was still doing my own arrangements, and I got to a piece. I think the first one was "Viva La Vida" by Coldplay, and it's like it's a great piece, but the bass line is the same all the way through, and the harmony is all the same all the way through, and the drum part's the same all the way through. The only thing that changes is the melody, and so it's just kind of like I don't really want to play these 4 bars over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And I had seen actually the one that I saw first was a guy by the name of Reggie Watts. Looping with a microphone. So there's plenty of guitar players that use these pedals, but there was somebody who plugged a microphone into it and it used his voice. And so that was just like, from that point I was like, well, obviously I could play trombone into it then. And so then I started experimenting with the looping. And so that's basically the only, when I arrange now, is the piece complicated enough to warrant a whole 4-part arrangement, or is it simple enough where I can maybe dumb it down a little bit and make it work with this progression where the chord progression stays the same, and I can hopefully try to make that interesting to listen to all the way through, adding harmonies and stuff. So that tradition is that's where I started from it. So when you're asking if you want somebody to start looping, where do they start? I didn't start with looping. That was something that came after. So I think I would start with something very simple. A lot of pop music is, but you can look up different. What is it? The Lion Sleeps Tonight is a great piece. That's probably my favorite first looped piece to try. It's very simple, and everybody kind of knows the back, that part is just as much a part of the song. Versus other pieces where you think of the chords as background, but that's another part that you can actually very easily pick out and kind of sing along to or play along to, and create this thing that's a very simple song but fun to play, and all the parts have a function. And that's kind of the way you have to think about it. Is there's a bass line, there's percussion, there's harmony, there's melody, and they don't necessarily change. Yeah.
Oh, that's the tricky thing with pop music too, because a lot of what you think is 4 or 5 parts is actually a really cool beat and a very repeated note underneath, and how do you incorporate a beat to a voice and an instrument, you know? And there are creative ways of doing it, but
that's all it is. Yeah, and a thing that I like to think about is what is your end goal, and like what is the product that you want? Are you just trying to have fun playing? Are you trying to learn something from it? Are you trying to like fix your intonation? Are you trying to have something that you can show your friends and family, like, or like me, market to the whole world, like, and what do you want that to sound like? How do you want that to come off in the future, especially if you're posting it on something like YouTube that's around forever, like at least so far, and it represents you, and so you want that to be, at least again in my experience, I want that to be a great representation of me on my best day when I post it, and hopefully I get better from there. But you know, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of working at it to get that end result. But there's some kind of nuanced stuff when it comes to that you don't think about, because we're musicians who play acoustic instruments. You know, there's no amplification like a guitar, where you're kind of changing it to this this synthesized sound that's being amplified, right? For what we do, we're trying to capture this like gorgeous natural sound, the vibration of the instrument, and I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to think about when I do what I do, especially in a loop or a multi-track. If you were in the room with me listening to me record, you would be hearing me play like a third trombone part, right? The actual thing that I want people to hear never happens, ever, until somebody hits play on that video. Like, it never happened. And so, like, what I'm trying to convey is something that doesn't exist. And so, you know, when I play live with people, it's a completely different feeling, it's a completely different thing, but that's what I'm trying to convey, is like the feeling of being at a live show with 4 real trombone players, if it's a 4-part arrangement. And in order to convey that, you actually have to do a lot of stuff that you wouldn't imagine that you have to do to get that feeling and that vibe. And so the editing that goes into it, I think that's the kind of thought, is like, what is the end goal? What do I want to convey? Because if you do what you would normally do in what we learn how to play our instruments in the way that you would want to do that, it doesn't actually come across, because you're not playing with real people. You're playing with like a recording of yourself or whatever, and those other versions of yourself don't like move with the music, and they don't do that. So there are things that I've done that, like, this is the first time I've talked about it, but like I'll play with the tempo just a little bit, but I'm listening to a click track. And so I'll have the click like fluctuate incrementally just throughout the piece, but I have to play with it because like all the parts have to move together. Or sometimes I'll play the bass line and then play the melody on top of that, and then cut the bass line and play a new bass line with the melody, and just kind of start lining that up, where it's like you can't feel the music if there's nothing that you're listening to, or if it's electronic MIDI that you're listening to. And so there's these kind of things that, like, man, it's a lot more work to get that feeling of like a live performance.
Do you have a structure of recording, like, in order to get that feeling, you always start with the bass line, or you always start with the melody, or?
It really does depend on probably the genre. With a pop tune, it's not super important anymore, because they are recorded to a very strict click track, and so we know what that feeling is of like it's not even real drums anymore, just like a drum kit that is programmed. That's a feeling, and so if I'm trying to get that feeling, like, that's pretty easy. Now I record to a drum track that is strictly in time, and that's a feeling. But for like a classic rock tune, it's super important to have that kind of like free feel. And so I've gone back and forth, and it seems like the best way for me to get that vibe without spending so much time is to record the bass line, and then the melody, and then the bass line again. Just because it's, you know, I get the general vibe playing the bass line with nothing, but it's not what it needs to be. Bass line with the drums usually. And then when I hear the melody in the drums, I can put the bass line right in the pocket. And so I usually have to re-record that near the end of the process. But I need it to record the like melody to have that vibe, and it's just kind of, you know, there's only so much that I can do to hear it in my head, or play the MIDI track and hear that and play along with it without it sounding too like structured. And the other thing is like I have editing on my side. I can edit anything I want with this video, and like I said, it's going to be there forever. And so like you want authenticity, but even that, it's like I want it to feel authentic.
Yeah.
And if it's actually authentic, it doesn't feel authentic, it doesn't matter. You know, I need it to feel authentic no matter what.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's making the time, like fixing the time in a way so it lines up, and sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes it's like moving the time so it's a little bit after the beat and like gives that vibe, and it's like it's over editing. But again, the point is that I want that to be like my vision of it, and I want it to feel authentic and feel like this practiced piece that sounds like this at the end. And so whatever you have to do to get to that it's kind of funny to understand how much you have to do, because like I said, it doesn't happen until somebody hits play. So it's not real, you know. You can't have 4 of me playing this piece. It doesn't exist. And so whatever you have to do to get to that end goal it's fine, it's necessary.
That's a really interesting point, because it's not something I really thought about. Like layering is a function or a tool, and it seems like you record your layers and put them together and you're done. And if the main thing that I always think about is, oh, the tempo is off, so you got to. But you're right. Your tempo could be right on, but it's the wrong feel.
Yeah.
And so I mean, what I'm getting from you is if you do this, be ready to re-record. Just because you recorded a great bass line doesn't mean that's going to be the right bass line when you put everything together.
The feel
has to be there.
And that I mean, I have it kind of down to a science because I've done it every week for years and years. And so I don't think about it too much, and I've gotten I think hopefully a pretty good feel for just like what to do if a piece isn't grooving the way it needs to. I can kind of figure out what I need to do to make sure that happens, especially if it's something swung. Like it's pretty easy to make sure something lines up when everything's right in time, but when it's this kind of feeling like the melody it feels ahead even though it's right in time, like that kind of nuance is it's this kind of editing nuance. I guess I kind of think of it like I have the arranger side of me, which knows what sounds good when you're arranging. Like I was talking to you earlier about unisons. There's this beautiful sound in brass, which is one of the most beautiful sounds we have, which is a whole brass ensemble playing in unison. And you wouldn't know until you tried it, but if you try to play that with a multi-track, it sounds awful. There's this synthesized like version of it where it's like noise canceling. There's a bunch of science and physics that goes into why it sounds bad. But 2 of the exact same person playing the exact same instrument in the exact same way on the exact same note sounds awful. Versus 100 people or even just a few people playing. Like,
I remember chatting about this with you, and I mean, for me, the other thing is it's not necessarily an American tradition for brass musicians to play in unison with each other. It is a British brass band tradition for sure. You have 4 to 5 cornets in the front row playing amazingly together and fitting each other's sound, but artfully playing in unison is something that's very difficult. And so just do that outside of a track, that's something you need to be conscious of. But so what are some tips you have for playing in unison? Like, do you adjust volume or adjust?
So I've found I can record unisons with a lot of tracks, but for a 3 or 4 part arrangement, you can't. It just sounds so weird. The other version is you can pan them completely to one side. So like in a left ear you have one version and a right ear you have another, and that sounds okay. But when those frequencies are together, they start to cancel each other out, and it just sounds fake. There's something about it that's just like, it doesn't sound like a true brass sound, and that's the kind of thing that's like, what is your end goal? Like, yes, this is authentic. I'm playing this unison just like I would in a live space, but it doesn't sound like that's not what I want. And so I don't write them, and that's the thing. Like you kind of can't write unisons for yourself to play on top of it. Another way that I've gotten around it is to play completely the wrong equipment for that unison. So if I'm playing like a high B flat, I play it on my normal equipment, and then in the unison I'll play it on a bass trombone or something with like a big mouthpiece, and so it sounds like a different player, because those unisons in a real setting sound so great because there's these different players with different equipment and different backgrounds trying to line up. and making this sound that is greater than either of them individually, versus this, which is just like the same sound twice. And it's just it's there's something about it that it's not good.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's like the arranger side, which is I know it sounds good for this platform or for this medium, I guess. And then there's the performer side, which knows how to record in a way that I now have what I need.
Yeah.
You know, like if I play something and it's a beautiful like recording, but I played one note out of tune and I know it, and I know that I played that note somewhere else in that perfectly in tune, I know that I have the editing skills to like copy and paste that note. I'm like, okay, we're good. Like I have what I need to get to where I'm going. Versus if I play something perfectly in tune, but like the feel is super like off and it's not, then like, no, I need to re-record it. So like there's this kind of like awareness of where I'm going the entire time. Like I would not arrange this in this way if it weren't for this. I wouldn't play this in this way if it weren't for this. And it keeps going from there. And so the editing side is completely that too. Like I know what I can do as a producer, I guess you would call it, of like if I'm building a loop, I'm now thinking of like these are different people. The arranger's done, the performer's done. We can't go back. We can go back, but we're not going back. And so now I've filmed the video and now I'm editing, let's say the loop, and I have to decide how I'm going to incorporate these parts and keep the momentum going so it's actually fun to watch all the way through. And so that's more of like a producer's hat. And it's just kind of like, I know like you could do this with 5 or 6 different people and it would work. But those are the versions, and I'm just so in this world that I've kind of built for myself that all of these things are going towards this one kind of thing that is not, it's so related to playing a brass instrument and playing chamber music, and it all comes from that. But again, if I were writing for an actual chamber group or playing an actual chamber group or even editing a recording of an actual chamber group, all of it would be maybe not that different, but definitely I would do it in a very different way.
Yeah. When you see other people's videos, do you like we've talked about, doubling on the same instrument, know, and of course when I hear something, the first thing that pops out to me if it's not working right, it's tuning and tempo.
Sure.
Are there other rookie mistakes that you hear?
Well,
not in a judgmental way, but because you've been through all the mistakes as well,
I definitely look at it from I'm probably the most understanding person when it comes to those rookie mistakes. Like other people may not know how hard it is to do that. Yeah. They just want it to be in tune and in time. Where I'm like, oh yeah, like I feel you. So I definitely understand more than most people and don't judge them as much. But
like easy things that can be fixed that maybe you, as knowing a little bit more, you can see it at the next level. So,
I mean, the easiest thing to do seems obvious and yet we don't, is just put a tuner on your stand when you play. There are so many times where if I'm playing something where the melody is not obvious to the chord progression, I'll just put a tuner on the stand and like I can watch it as I play. Then I know, you can just kind of see it out of the corner of your eye, and if something's not quite sitting right, you can do that. And then the other thing is I got in the habit of basically, before I record, I build the song exactly the way I want it to sound in my editing software using MIDI, and that's with those nuanced tempo changes and stuff that give me that vibe. And so now when I'm playing, I can basically listen to how I want it to sound, and even that is another thing where like if it doesn't quite sound right on there, I know what it's going to sound like because I have that sense for it. If it doesn't sound right in like the notation software that I write in or on the MIDI in the recording software, like I know what it's gonna sound like when I get to the end product. But for intonation, like you need to hear something. You can't just play. I mean, I guess you could and then tune to the bass line, but that, in my experience, does not work. You're right. That's actually, like you were saying, you would do something totally different for chamber music. That is blaringly different because you always listen for the bass or you listen for somebody across, but when you're yourself, you don't have anybody to listen to across to. So, yeah, that, and like, So I will say, like, it's a completely different skill set, and that's what people don't understand about it. Is like, I'm a great player, and like I can play in tune with anybody and all this stuff, and then you multi-track and you sound like you don't know what you're doing, and like your intonation's all over the place, and you're like what? Like I thought I had this,
Yeah.
and it's because your ears are working so well that you don't even you don't have to play in like perfectly in tune with the tuner. Like that's all relative to what you're playing around, and now all of a sudden you're playing with yourself, and that's it. And so that it's a completely different skill that like, I mean, it makes you a better musician for sure, but I don't know that it's super transferable. Of like, when do you need to know that like I'm playing the third in a major chord and I need to lower it in the middle of this melody? Like, is that really important? Or can you just use your ears when you're playing and that works? So in this specific setting, like you do need to know that. And so those are the things that I certainly have to like write in my music. Like this is the third of a chord, a major chord, so I have to lower it, or a third of a minor chord, so I have to raise it. And you don't know that if you're not hearing the whole thing and tuning along with the music. So
So for me, the takeaway on this is really 50% or larger than 50% is the arranging section. I mean, it seems to me like if you've ever sewed an outfit, which you may not have, and I've only done it a couple times, but you based an outline of what that dress or those pants or that jacket is going to be first, and it's this white cloth. You see an outline. It's not the finished product, but you can at least see that the structure is there. So the arrangement structure has to be there in a huge way. And then after that, I mean, it sounds to me like it's like 20% performer, 25% production. But that initial arrangement is really important.
Only because it's the starting point.
Yeah.
For me, every single section is the most important part. Like I finished the arrangement and then like he's done, and now it's like, okay, now I got to do the work. Like gotta practice it. Now he's done. Like okay, now and so it's just kind of like each section is its own whole project, which is daunting for sure. But it's also really exciting because you're like building the skill set in each section. And so if you look back at my original stuff, like I was an okay arranger, an okay player, an okay editor, an okay filmographer, like okay with lighting, okay with, like all of that. And then each time it steps up.
Yeah.
Every single part of that, like each skill set, which is different, it keeps building on itself. Like I'm not just practicing trombone, right?
Yeah.
I'm practicing video editing. I'm practicing ear training when I'm arranging. Like literally when I started, it would take me 3 months to do an arrangement, just arrange it. Now, like I can sit down at a piano and be listening to a pop tune that I've never heard before, and by the end of the tune, I can play it on piano. Not even listening to it once through. And like that to a version of me in high school is like crazy, Yeah. And that's just because I've been practicing it. You know, you don't think about it like that, but I've been doing it every single week for almost a decade.
Yeah.
Like, I've been practicing ear training, but I haven't been sitting like practicing ear training. This is a major third. I'm just really doing it through a very practical sense.
Yeah.
And that is true for every single skill across that, which is, there are a lot of stuff that you do, and the marketing side of it too. Like that's another side. Like after it's even done, I have now this product, and now I'm marketing it. Like the whole thing, all of those skills are I'm practicing them. So it's really cool. And the cool part is you're not thinking about that. It doesn't feel like practice. It feels like you're just making a cool thing.
Yeah.
But and you learn a lot. But I think a good starting point is to actually, like you're saying, have that outline. Like what are you trying to do? And then how can you just kind of shape that into making that happen? Because with the technology today, you can make that. Like with enough time, you can make it. If you have a clear enough idea of what it is.
Yeah, so I think that's about all the time we have for today.
Oh my gosh, I think so.
I hope this gives you a better idea of how to create a better layered product, and a more well-rounded view of what goes into making it. It's not just layering 4 really well-performed parts. There's a lot of planning that goes into it. There should be a lot of planning that goes into it, and if the planning isn't there, you can probably hear it as
Sure.
as you're listening to different people's productions. So, do you have any new projects that are coming out soon that you want to plug, or ones that have just been released?
Right now I'm working on, I've recorded a couple big projects with lots of collaborators, and I'm sifting through the editing right now. So keep an eye out for my International Trombone Festival collaboration that I recorded back in July.
Very cool.
Yeah, that one's going to be big. So I think we have 48 trombone players on it, all professional trombone players.
48 players to edit down.
Yes. I really enjoy those projects because like I said, I've practiced so much on like editing my own stuff.
Yeah.
When I actually get a chance to feature other great players and show them in the best light, it's really fun to honestly not have to play all the parts and get to show these other players. So I'm really excited about that one. Yeah.
Very cool. All right, that's all we have for today. If you would like more clinics and more great information, download the DentistWick app with podcasts and a library full of articles and video clinics and more stuff like this. And if you've got questions for Chris Bell after listening to this, you can ask him your questions at the website below. And anything DentistWick related, by all means, contact us here at the DentistWick Advisory Studio and the address below. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.